As we said earlier, our children have waved goodbye to summer, but many of them can't say the same for hunger. We know this, but for some reason, most of us don't feel a sense of urgency about fixing the problem. Joining us this evening is an expert, the Director of Communications and National Programs at Food Banks Canada, Marzina Gershow. Welcome to What She Said.
Oh, thank you so much.
Marzina, many of us have misconceptions about the facts surrounding this issue, I think. Food Banks Canada recently did a study, including a poll. What did you find out that we should know?
Well, shockingly, we found out that close to half of the Canadians actually know someone who's gone to a food bank, and that really surprised us. But if you look at overall stats, close to 1 million people are helped by a food bank each month. And so it kind of makes sense that somewhere in our lives we're going to come across someone who actually needs the services of a food bank.
And lots of children?
Absolutely. In fact, 1 in 3 of those helped are children under the age of 18.
You know what was shocking to me when I read this survey was that the usage of food banks has not decreased since 2008, which was the worst, the worst that many of us have seen anyway, in terms of people losing their jobs and, losing money with the financial crisis.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we need to understand and why we need to raise awareness of hunger in Canada is that while the economy in general has bounced back, many of us out there still are struggling. And of those going to food banks, 1 in 6 are actually employed or recently employed.
That's something that I found staggering when I was working out in Oshawa and Whitby, Ajax Pickering area. I found a marked change we were reporting on people, and people did not used to want to speak to you when they went to do an interview about food drives. People started to talk to us and tell us how they got there because they had lost their job, because they'd been downsized, because their kids had lost work and had moved home. So family dynamics were changing as the level, and people wanted people to know that. So that was a big change for us.
Well, and you highlight a really interesting fact in terms of where you were asking those questions, because we know that the manufacturing sector, so what would be very strong in the Whitby, Oshawa area, is in decline in Canada. Factories are closing down, plants are closing down, they're moving out of the country. And those are well-paying jobs that come with benefits. So what happens is we're now, it's now over the last number of years, we're moving into more of these service jobs that are low paying, part-time, don't come with benefits, and are very precarious. And so people are going from job to job like that, and without any of that security that they used to have with those kinds of jobs. And so it's really critical as we not only try to raise awareness of this issue, what are some of the things we could be doing to reduce the number of people going hungry?
Well, to your point, there was a survey released this past week that 47% of Canadians live paycheck to paycheck. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, there's not much of a cushion there.
No, there is not. And that goes back to who we're seeing going to food banks. And in fact, one of the largest groups that are increasing are singles. They don't necessarily have the cushion of of a spouse there to help, and especially single men. So they may be coming out of the employment track and having a really difficult time getting back into some consistent employment.
Now, the thought of children going hungry is difficult for me as a mother, for Kate as a mother. I mean, it's not. I can't quite process it. But what about school breakfast programs? Do they make any dent in the issue at all?
Oh, absolutely. Wholeheartedly, because many of these school programs actually look at communities where it's needed most. We know that many kids in low-income communities are going to school hungry. And if you're going to school hungry, you can't learn. You can't think, you can't engage, and you're not going to develop in the way you need to. And so school lunch programs, breakfast programs, summer feeding programs, those are all really, really important.
But the other thing, too, is I ask myself, and I know Kate does too, why in a country like Canada that is considered rich by any standards in terms of we have all this land, we can grow things, why here?
I think that's the age-old question.
Exactly.
And fundamentally, it does come down to income. And not everyone is able to access well-paying work. If they live in economically depressed communities where there is no work. You look at the province of Alberta, where for many years it was in a boom, and then all of a sudden that boom ends, and you end up with thousands of people who can't get those well-paying jobs because they're no longer there. And then all of a sudden they need to go and get extra help, and that's where food banks can come in because they're providing some of that temporary assistance or emergency assistance.
So many Canadians do donate to food banks, food and money, because money it actually works better, I think, in the long run for the actual food bank, doesn't it?
Well, we always say both.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you're going to drop off a canned good, why not a couple of dollars? If the grocery store is doing a fundraising campaign, food is critical because that's what food banks are there for. Now, for the dollars, that's just as critical because it helps to keep the lights on, it helps to keep the trucks on the road. But at the same time, it's really both. We're really encouraging Canadians to do both.
But is that enough? Are food banks enough?
That's a really excellent question. And the reality is in order to reduce the number of Canadians going hungry, we need policy change. So we need federal and provincial governments to really put in action those key policies, such as how do we get our labor force skilled so that they can find those better paying jobs? How do we improve our social safety net? Because right now people who live on welfare, I mean, you can't survive on welfare. And for many people, that's just a temporary position they're in. They eventually move out of it. So there's lots of small things that policy can do and have a significant impact on the number of people going hungry.
Except the policies you're talking about take time. I mean, to change your whole focus of where you're going to put education dollars or training dollars, and that might take, 5 to 15 years to really sort of be passed down. So what do you do in the meantime? What can we do in the meantime? What's your message to all our listeners?
Yes, and in fact, 8 out of 10 Canadians said that they believe they have a role in trying to address hunger across the country. So that's where we're saying, please donate to your local food bank, raise awareness. It's Hunger Awareness Week coming up, so be involved, share the message.
So what is the message about Hunger Awareness Week? It runs from September 18th to 22nd. So tell us what's going to be going on.
Well, it's a week where food banks right across the country really mobilize to let and to remind people, because we're coming out of a summer period, to remind folks that there are people going hungry in their community. So it's really about donating food funds or time to their local food bank. And please share the message that there are people going hungry in Canada, and engage and let your friends and family know to also donate.
Do you think some people just don't believe it?
I think that some people don't understand.
Yes.
And that's what we started right off the top is how can this be happening in Canada? I think many people understand that people fall on hard times, but sometimes those hard times last longer than they should.
Yeah, because Canadians are so giving. I think if the message really got through, they're sending money to all everywhere. They give, from their heart. We're a fabulous nation, but maybe we don't really. It's not in front of us. So hopefully Hunger Awareness Week will bring the message home.
Absolutely. And we hope that people go to hungeраwarenessweek.ca and find their local food bank to donate to, share on their social media at #HungerWeek, and really support their local food bank.
And Food Banks Canada, does that also have a separate place where people can find out more
Absolutely.
information?
You can go to foodbankscanada.ca and you can actually find your local food bank. We've got a food bank finder, so you can find your local food bank to donate to.
Okay, but specifically it's HungerAwarenessWeek.ca is the main website for Hunger Awareness Week, which is the 18th to 22nd. So everybody that's listening and watching, learn about it, find out.
Yeah, and just buy a few extra cans of a lot of things when you're doing your grocery shopping. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a
this
pleasure.
evening. This is What She Said. We'll be right back.